When I was a kid, there was one of them sayings that sticks with you. Be the change you want to see in the world. So that's who I became. That's what was important to me. And it still is. I went through hell as a child. The change that I wanted to see was for that not to be acceptable. I don't mean just in words, I mean in action. The things that I went through because of my family, because of their choices. That's something you guys don't pay enough attention to. The way that it affected me to be abused. The way that it affected me to be locked up with other people who were abused. It's calculated, but it's emotional. It's all emotional. Every decision that I make is emotional. It is all based on emotion. Every last bit of it. And yours as well. You say, control your emotions. No. You cannot control your emotions. All you can do is hide them, to suppress them, and that is what society teaches you. Who is allowed to have what emotions? When my friends went missing, that affected me emotionally. I wanted them back. I wanted them safe. I wanted them found. So I started searching for them. When my friends froze to death in Boulder, Colorado, I didn't want that to hurt me as badly as it did. And if I did something to help them to not... If I did something to help them to not freeze to death, if I passed out those blankets, I knew what it was like to be cold. I would have frozen to death if it hadn't been for Michael Pennington. He and I shared a blanket in a parking garage for about a month. We took turns sleeping. When people tell me their stories, I feel their stories. I feel them emotionally and sometimes even physically. I also have a memory. I remember the things that happened to me, and when people tell me a story of something that I have not experienced, I still have an emotional database to draw from. People did a lot of things to me that they got away with, and I didn't want those things happening to my loved ones. They still did. But because I did something about it, it happened less. Because I handed out blankets during the 7 years that I passed out blankets, an average of 11 people per year. And you have to look at the numbers of people who died in Boulder, Colorado, and the years that I was there versus the years that I wasn't. 11 people a year. when my friends got addicted to drugs and they started damaging themselves and damaging others, I knew what that felt like, not just for them, but also for those others. I remember what it was like for me as a kid, not having my parents, going through that abuse because of decisions that I did not make. People say you decide your reality. No. You decide how you mask it. You decide how you hide it. I love all of my friends, every single one of them. I love Candace. I love Brandon. Y'all hear that train, I'm sure. My mother's house on First Street in Chapel, Nebraska. It's as close to the railroad tracks as this house is. Maybe 20 yards closer. And you could feel it shake the house when it went by. You get used to it. That whistle, yeah, you learn to live with it. It's an inanimate object, and it's a sound. And sure, it's animated as in it's moving, but it's inanimate as in it doesn't make its own decisions. It doesn't decide where it goes. It doesn't decide if it's on or off. It has no decision-making abilities whatsoever. It's just a machine. Human beings are very different. You can feel loss with an object. There was a picture of Jamie's son that I carried for years. And when my shop flooded, that was the only thing that was irreplaceable. That was the only thing in that whole shop. The clothes, the computers, the tools, none of that mattered. Just that picture of the boy. People want to be angry with me for showing my emotions. People want to be angry with me for reacting to how other people treat me. You all react to how people treat you. You hear those words and you pretend it doesn't hurt. What Alicia said hurt me on an emotional level like you cannot understand. When I was in Virginia and she typed those words, "You showed your true colors." Really? How? I did what you asked. I did as you asked. I didn't just say I loved you, I proved it. Like my older brother, I didn't just tell him that I loved him. I walked from Bozeman, Montana to Boulder, Colorado to prove it to him. And he's not a part of my life. With Jamie, I didn't just tell her that I loved her. I turned around on that trip to Virginia to go all the way to Rapid City, South Dakota to prove it, to help her move. When I went to Virginia, I wanted to be there sooner. I wanted to show Natalie I really do love her. Not in love. Jamie broke me of that idea. I absolutely do not believe in falling in love. You can fall in lust. You cannot fall in love. When they said that I was a stalker, I knew what that entailed. I knew how people would react. I've seen the difference between when somebody pretty does that and when somebody who's not physically attractive does that. It's the difference between loving someone and love at first sight. There is no such thing as love at first sight. That's lust. When I was having a severe panic attack, I wasn't sleeping. I was thinking about all of my loved ones that I couldn't see. I was feeling like shit because I was entirely dependent on Natalie and Alicia emotionally. Pretty much everybody else just treated me like shit at that point. I didn't want to depend on them financially. I didn't want to be a burden on them, and that hurt me so much. Just the thought of being a burden on them hurts me. And there I was, stuck in Chesapeake, Virginia, unable to take care of myself. Stuck in my vehicle, no money to go anywhere. The last of my money got spent on my birthday. And after that, I was just stuck. I had just enough money to get to work at Labor Ready for one more day if I was lucky. But I'd screwed myself up so severely cleaning up flood damage that I couldn't. The word stalker. After that, people did mean and cruel things, and the rumors got out of hand very quickly. And although I said it took about 3 months, that's the thing about time, is that I remember the emotional portion of it, which is what helps me to remember the situation. But there's no time to that emotion. My emotions don't tell me it happened on Tuesday, November 11th at 8:47 p.m. My emotions tell me that it was an event that hurt. And yeah, I pulled that date and number out of my ass. The point of the matter is that whole fake it till you make it thing is what's wrong with the world. Don't fake it, be who you are. I had helped find missing people for years before Natalie disappeared. I had been showing people that I love them for years before I tried to help find Natalie. What they had to say when I was in Chesapeake, Virginia, that word stalker, it didn't just rob me of Natalie and Alicia, it robbed me of everyone who brought joy to my life. With few exceptions. All of the joy that I had between when I went to Virginia, or when I left Virginia, and when Natalie died, came down to 3 days. 2 of those days, Chelsea Worsing came to see me, and we had fun, and it was wonderful. And one of those days, Rachel Klang and Dee Dee Klang came to see me, and it was wonderful. But there's a reason that there was only 3 of those situations. It's because Between having to deal with violence and avoiding violence, I chose to avoid the violence. I chose to avoid Boulder. I chose to avoid hundreds, literally hundreds of people in Boulder County that I love. And then I got to hear about my loved ones dying, and I didn't get to see them. I didn't get to bring joy to their life like I used to. I used to draw pictures because it felt good, and I stopped. I couldn't see my loved ones. I didn't have a reason to. And now, because of that one little lie, that one little white lie that they didn't think would hurt anyone, I couldn't see my loved ones without everybody questioning my motives. The things that are important to me, that is who I am. We live in a painful world where people do terrible things, and the difference is whether or not you do something. How many of these people would have walked from Bozeman, Montana to Boulder, Colorado to see me? How many of these people would have walked across town to see me? It's not that I expect people to do the same for me that I would do for them. It's that I don't understand why it is that they just talk about it. I didn't understand when Natalie disappeared why her mother was picking on me on my Facebook instead of going out and looking for her daughter. I didn't understand why my friends were arguing on Facebook instead of trying to help find her. That's what Natalie and Alicia and Maddie didn't understand, is I can't see any of my loved ones. And these people who threw me away, they don't understand that I am hateful at the fact that I can't see them. That I am hurt so much because I can't see them. And I can't see them because they wanted to just be words, if that. Empty words. Between coming forward and allowing me to be victimized, they allowed me to be victimized. Meanwhile, they keep dying. When you're on the streets, you don't live as long as other people. It's a moving society, constantly moving. People don't want you there, so they try to run you off to somewhere else always. And so you meet a lot of people, and some of them are good people, and some of them are not so good people, but they're still people. But you're stuck out in the weather, you're more likely to freeze to death. I can't be there to pass out blankets. I can't be there with my jokes and a laugh and a smile. I can't give them hugs. Everything that was familiar to me got robbed over one little white lie. And Natalie and Alicia didn't understand that. They still don't. My dad never cared. In my adult life, my father has never once called me just to say he loves me. Never once called me to ask how I'm doing. Not even once. He has never made any effort to contact me first. Not even once. And even though I have people accusing me of doing terrible things every time I try to help find a missing person now, I still try to help find missing people because it's the right thing to do. See, that's the thing about not being able to be someplace where other people get to slander your name and you're never allowed an honest court date. They get to say, see, look what the court papers say. Does those court papers say that I wasn't allowed to go? Do those court papers say that I went to 20 court dates? I went to every single court date, every single one. And they kept postponing them and postponing them. Do those court papers say that I didn't have the money to go? Do the courts give a shit about that? And that's the thing, is that I didn't need someone to walk from Bozeman, Montana to Boulder, Colorado. I didn't need someone to drive 1,700 miles to see me. I just needed them to use their words. I needed them to use their voices. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to be angry at all of these people who chose between coming forward and allowing me to be victimized. They allowed me to be victimized knowing that I was telling the truth. Miss Peaches knew I was telling the truth and she should have come forward, and she just never did. Alicia Bollinger knew I was telling the truth and she should have come forward, but she just never did. Well, I was victimized and victimized and victimized until I was so frustrated that I screamed at the top of my lungs for help. And people say, you're scary, you're a psycho, you're a dangerous person, you're a terrible monster. No, I'm tired of being abused. Now, those videos that I made after Natalie died, begging Maddie Boa to come forward, begging Alicia Bollinger to come forward, Alicia didn't bother looking at any of those videos. She didn't fucking care. She doesn't care about anyone but her. But people wanted to pretend like I was some sort of a terrible monster. The only things they ever showed Alicia were the things that they could twist and contort to make me look like a monster. Oh, Alicia, you say he's a monster? All right, well, we'll go out and we'll harass him. And we will berate him and we will abuse him until he reacts in a way where we can pretend he's a monster, and we'll send you that. Will that make you happy, Alicia? Look, Alicia, we pushed him to the point that he is fucking snapping and he wants to blow his goddamn head off. For a whole year before Natalie was killed, while people were abusing me and calling me terrible names and assaulting me over things I didn't do, I wrote those stories on Facebook so that people could read them, so they would know the truth. This is what really happened. This is what I've had to go through. It wasn't mean or hateful. And the things that you pretend are me being hateful, yes, they absolutely are hateful. I hate being treated like that. I hate being treated like a monster. It's not just words. You say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, the problem is I'm having to deal with the sticks and the stones, and those words do hurt you. Those words will get people to pick up sticks and pick up stones and hurt you. I needed just one person to love me enough to try to understand, and not one person did. Not even one. Because if they loved me enough to understand, they would have listened, and they would have come forward, and they would have told the truth. Miss Peaches wants to throw a fucking tantrum like a goddamn baby, because she doesn't like the fact that I said she made zero effort to go in with me to speak to the police. Nobody's beating her up. Nobody's calling her a child molester or a rapist. People aren't grabbing their kids and dragging them inside just because she walked by. People aren't throwing beer bottles at her out the window. Police aren't going out of their way to prevent her from saying anything, although they did. She isn't being incarcerated. She isn't forced to break the law. She is not separated from all of her loved ones. You know what hurts me most of all? Is that I want my life to be over and nobody will kill me. And I can't kill myself. I can't kill myself in Dallas's house. He'll have to find the body. And I don't want him to hurt like that. I remember what it felt like to find Danny dead behind the pedestrian shop. I can't see my loved ones, God damn it. I needed help. I'm talking my actual loved ones, people who made my life better, not people who made my life worse. My dad always made my life worse. Always. Because my dad is a selfish man. All of these people who stabbed me in the back, I love every one of them, and every one of them hurt me. Every one of them went out of their way to find any excuse to turn their back on me. Every single one of them made every excuse not to look at the evidence, and you know what? My story is so long now, and I have been through so much abuse because of Natalie and Alicia Bollinger's slander in Chesapeake, Virginia. I can't function. I relive all of that abuse every fucking day. Do you know why? Because it's because of that abuse that I can't see my loved ones. It's because of that abuse that I have to be afraid to go to Boulder, Colorado. Because of the slander. And because of people twisting things to pretend like I'm the bad guy. Why is it that every time that I tried going to the police about the things that were done to me, they said, we can't, it's out of our jurisdiction. Even if it happened in this very town and I went to the cops in this town. Meanwhile, if I do it back, if I just say it once, that I'm some sort of a terrible person who deserves it. How many times do you expect me to get hit before I hit you back? There's a difference between turning the other cheek and taking a shit ton of punishment. There's a difference between turning the other cheek and taking a beat down. When Natalie disappeared, Officer Peterson and I, or Detective Peterson and I, went outside and I had a cigarette with him. If you read the situation about Detective Peterson when they caught Joseph Michael Lopez, they did the same thing with him. But I told Detective Peterson, I'm willing to commit felonies to help find Mad. Oh my God. I'm willing to commit felonies to keep Natalie safe, and I meant it. I am willing to commit felonies to get her safe. If you are a missing person, I am willing to commit felonies to keep my loved ones safe. Not only am I willing to do so, I have done so. If the law will not keep you safe, then the law does not apply to you. The law will not keep me safe. On paper, I should have been safe years ago. On paper, everything that was done to me was illegal and wrong. But that's on paper. And paper is not real life.